Good evening. I would like to welcome you all to the October 8th, 2008 public hearing of the Board of Architecture Review. We appreciate everyone here in attendance this evening. I'd like to recognize some observers from the University of Kentucky's Historic Preservation Program here this evening. Thank you for joining us, and I hope it will be exciting and informative for you. The board was established by zoning ordinance in 1958. Our first historic district was Gratz Park, and we now have a total of 14 historic districts. The board, which is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Urban County Council, is part of the Division of Historic Preservation. Excuse me. The Preservation Office maintains a full-time staff to assist you with your projects. The board encourages and recommends that applicants use them as a resource. The Preservation Office is located at 101 East Vine Street, room 220. It is our procedure to consider applications in the order in which they are listed on our agenda. In each case, we will have a presentation by the staff. We hear any additional comments from the applicant. The board will then ask questions or make comments regarding the application, and then hear comments from any interested parties in the audience. The chair will then ask board members to enter a motion. If you wish to address the board this evening, please come to the microphone, give your name and address for the public record. We would also ask that you please write your name on the sign-in sheet by the door so the information may be recorded correctly. This evening, we have a full board, and I would like everyone to go around and introduce themselves. My name is Derek Wingfield. I'm the acting chair, and just sort of go down the line here.
My name is Greg Hosfield. Rob Magrish.
Monica Sumner.
And I'm Nathan Billings.
Thank you all very much. Before we start in with the certificate of appropriateness applications, I'd like to note the following staff approvals. There are certain items that the staff can approve, eliminating the necessity for all applicants to appear before the board. There are 14 of those this evening, and I'll read those quickly into the public record.
One quick thing to note, too, for your agenda, the nominating committee has met and has a report, and it's up to you all, but it's possible you might want to get that report and take action before you go into all the items on the docket, or you could hold it until the end of the meeting at your choice.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and take care of that before we get into the COAs. In the Aylesford Historic District at 615 East High Street, replace roof and gutters. 333 Grosvenor Avenue, renovate structure. 348 Linden Walk, renovate front porch. 520 East Maxwell Street, renovate structure. 138 Woodland Park, renovate structure. In the Belcourt Historic District at 141 West Belcourt, replace the storm door. In Constitution Historic District at 312 North Limestone, prep for painting. In Ellesmere Park at 612 Ellesmere Park, replace sidewalk. In Fayette Park, there are two cases. 431 Fayette Park, tuck point and clean masonry, and 435 Fayette Park, remove dying tree. In the Mulberry Hill Historic District at 400 North Limestone, renovate structure. In the South Hill Historic District at 318 South Mill Street, install a handrail. And the last two staff approvals are in Woodward Heights at 412 Cross Street, renovate roof, and at 314 Marina Street, replace roof. All these applicants already have their certificates of appropriateness and can proceed along with their projects. We'll go ahead and discuss the election of chair and vice chair of the board. Does the nominating committee have a report?
We do have a report. We would like to nominate Derek Wingfield as our chair and Nathan Billings as our vice chair.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Fantastic. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion of the motion? Does anyone in the audience have any comment about that? All right. Hearing none, I guess we'll have all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 I'll abstain. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start with our certificates of appropriateness applications for this evening. The first two are in the Aylesford Historic District. In some cases, staff is recommending approval with very simple conditions. We'll attempt to sound those cases. and not have a full presentation, but if anyone in the audience or on the board has any questions about the case, please speak up and we'll have the full discussion of it. The first was at 309 Lafayette Avenue, construct lean-to shed and extend walkway. Is that applicant present? Sir, would you like to come forward, please? If you would, please give us your name and address.
Hubert Burton, 309 Lafayette Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Staff has recommended approval with a single condition that all wood be painted or stained opaque.
Right.
Is that acceptable to you?
Good.
Excellent. Does anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak to this case? Okay, hearing no comments, Chair to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 10980-309-A concerning property at 309 Lafayette Avenue, I would move that the board approve as submitted with a condition suggested by staff that all exposed wood be painted or else stained opaque in nature.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Sumner. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next case is at 216 Clay Avenue, replace garage, rework paved areas. Staff is recommending approval with 3 conditions. Is that applicant present this evening? Would you come forward and give us your name and address, please?
Hi, Brian Smith, 216 Clay Avenue.
Have you had a chance to read the staff's recommendations?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with them?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, excellent. Does anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant?
There's one thing I wanted to see if it was a problem. Within the actual garage itself, I had listed it to be asphalt, and if it's a problem to change it to concrete or have the latitude to be able to do either or.
I think either material would be appropriate as long as it's within the same footprint.
Exactly.
And that's something that you can work out with staff.
Okay. That's all I have.
Does the staff have any problems with that?
No, not at all. It's an interior material.
I was just one clarification. You're talking about the actual inside footprint of the garage?
Correct.
No, that would be fine, and once it's built, it would be an inside element, and it wouldn't be under the purview of the process. It's a little bit of a gray area in terms of something under construction from scratch, but either way, it's within the guidelines to use either material. You would just want to let us know before what your decision is.
Any other comments or questions?
I do have a question, just for general understanding of what you're trying to accomplish here. I'm just curious about the intent of the garage. Do you wish to park automobiles in it?
Yes.
Yes. And so the end of the paved surface between that point and the front of the garage is just going to be lawn?
That's correct.
Do you anticipate that being a problem, erosion or mud or dirt?
Ultimately, no, but it's not cars that'll be moved in and out regularly. It's an old
Okay, so
47
it will not be
pickup
used
truck.
daily then?
Yeah, not at all.
I was just curious about that.
Anything else? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 04150216-G concerning real property located at 216 Clay Avenue, I would recommend that the board approve the application as submitted with the conditions approved by staff. Number 1 being concrete block foundation exposed above grade to be either parged or split face design. Number 2, that all exposed wood of the new garages be painted or else stained opaque. Number 3, the repaving of the driveway shall not adversely change the water runoff direction.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Magrish. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Our next case is in the Western Suburbs Historic District, and it's at 704 West Short Street. Construct trellis and pave utility strip. I would note that there has been supplemental information submitted by the applicant to the board, and that should have been in a little stapled packet right in front of your seat there. Is that applicant present? Or staff, do you have any?
The applicant's not here, but was to be here at 5:15, so if we might go on to the next.
Absolutely, if that's okay with everyone.
Mr. Chairman, I just moved to pass this and to go to attachment number 4.
Do we need a motion?
We just do that procedurally.
I think you don't need a motion to do that, to change the order of the document. No, I don't think
Okay.
Just do so.
Thank you. We'll go to the Aylesford Historic District at 323 Clay Avenue, Chains Window Heights. Is that applicant present? Sir, if you would come forward and give us your name and address, please.
Tony Childress, 127 Old Park Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Have you had a chance to read staff's findings and recommendations?
Yes.
They're recommending denial of the request. Would you like to discuss this?
I would, and I'd like to get Kenny Kohlenberger, the head builder, up here to help me.
Absolutely. What we'll do first, if you would entertain it, we'll have staff give the full presentation so that everyone's sort of on the same field, and then we'll call you right back up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The applicant at this time is requesting the board grant COA to excuse me, I've got the wrong case. I'll start over. The case was before the board for a COA at the September 24th meeting to add, change openings, construct porch, paved drive, parking area, with the only item which the staff recommended denial being the request to change the window material and the head height elevation of the 3 windows of the building's left elevation. Since the applicant was not present, the board tabled the request to change the windows and approved with conditions the remainder of the request. The proposal to replace the 3 windows of this structure's left elevation is to allow the first floor ceiling height to be lowered so that an acceptable height might be achieved for a proposed toilet room at the second floor. The replacement windows and trim would have the same width as the existing windows, with only the head height being reduced. The new 1/1 design windows are noted to be clad. We've listed the guidelines for your reference, the findings, the proposal to shorten the 3 historic windows of the structure's left elevation to accommodate a change in the room's ceiling height is found inappropriate, not in accordance with guidelines 22.2 and 22.7, respectively reference retaining original window openings and dropped ceilings. Recommendation: staff recommends denial of the request as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Giannacchio.
Martin, would you mind pointing out which windows, the detail, just mention specifically what's involved in with the photographs?
I could do that. I think maybe, Randy, if I could see a floor plan. These are the 3 windows, 1, 2, 3, on the left elevation. And Randy, if you could put the elevation up. This is, of course, the three windows again. This one here and this one are splayed walls, and that is a full left elevation.
Thank you, Mr. Giannacchio.
You're welcome.
Sir, if you would, I'd like to come back forward.
By lowering the ceiling to accommodate a bathroom upstairs, the windows are currently approximately 70 inches tall and 30 inches wide. If we lower the ceiling to 8 foot, the top of the window is going to be about that far from the ceiling. When if we put crown mold or anything, it's going to cover the top of the window on the inside. We'd like to leave the bottom part of the windows height where they are and just lower the top part of the windows by about approximately 10 inches. It'll still be a uniform look from the outside, but it's going to look kind of funny inside if the window goes all the way to the ceiling and we have to mold around it.
And what is the current ceiling height in that space?
It was 10 feet and we've lowered it to 8 feet.
It had about a 6-foot tall attic space above.
Sir, I'm sorry, if you would, give us your name and address quickly.
Ken Kohlenberger, and my address 1644 East Unity Road, and I live in Marshall County, Kentucky.
Thank you very much.
We're doing the construction. But it was originally a 6-foot attic space above, and we wanted to lower the floor to make 8 feet at the second story, also 8 feet at the first story, in those areas to add a bathroom upstairs, a master bath. We'd like to use the original molding, which is a wide molding and a crown mold on the inside, but it's going to mean lowering the window height from 70 inches to 60 inches. It's still going to be a 5-foot tall window.
Doesn't this lowering of the floor affect every window in the place?
No, it's just in one area, just in this one area. Over a certain bedroom, really it's a bedroom and 2 closet areas. And that allows us to put a bathroom upstairs, a bathroom and a closet, which there is not.
Thank you.
Also, could you please clarify, we're discussing the 3 windows on the side elevation, but I'm looking at the existing plan that was provided to us, and there's a window labeled at the rear that also has the same note, reduce window height and replace window. Is that elevation not in question here, or is that window not affected?
Sure.
That was part of the original proposal that was approved last in the September 24th meeting, and that portion of the house in the back has had some major modifications, so that window was not an original window to the structure, and it was noted in its construction to have a later date of the 1960 era, and so it wasn't deemed to be as significant as the ones we're dealing with now.
Thank you.
What's the status of the structure today? Has the floor already been dropped down to an 8-foot drywalled, and really the issue is whether you can? It's basically all the interior construction work done. Just whether you want to reduce the height of that window by approximately 12 inches.
10 inches.
10 inches. So really, what you want to do at this point is just reduce the height of the window. There's no other construction work that needs to be done.
Well, the drywall is not in, but the rough-in plumbing and the ceiling has been dropped, all the framing. And by dropping that, we had to reframe for closets and the bathroom downstairs also. So all the entire house has been affected by dropping that in one way or another.
Does this, if the exterior, looking at the window, does the new flooring drop down below the header of the window?
No, it doesn't. It's maybe an inch or 2 right above the window opening itself to the floor.
Is it just trimmed right now, or just roughed in, or?
The inside trim is taken off, so it's just roughed in. The outside trim is still on Well, what's left of it, rotted away.
So just to clarify, the original size opening,
Could you step up to the microphone, please?
the original size opening fits with the new ceiling height. It's the molding and space above the window where we're having a conflict. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Have you considered, for lack of fixing the top sash so it's inoperable, and painting a piece of plywood like a dark gray or a black for that 10 inches, leaving that in place, just sealing that part of the window up? From the exterior, it looks dark.
Right.
And then having the window remain where it is. Am I being clear enough?
Yeah, no, I understand. I think, Amelia, we've talked about this once before. We would prefer to lower them to 10 inches, if at all possible. We just think it'll make a better finish inside. You know, it won't look like we lowered and put a floor over a window. And of course, we've got original siding to re-side, down over that 10 inches, and the original molding, as much as we can use is going to go back on.
We're even using original tuba floors and framing when possible, saving all that. It's just going to have a really odd look from the inside.
Yeah, I could see that, and I guess the issue inside. Fortunately or unfortunately, we really don't look at the inside of the structures with regard to the guidelines. So I'm trying to figure out a way that will let you lower your ceilings easily and still attain the as much of the original fabric of the structure on the exterior as possible. I think that might be an easy way to accomplish it. I understand your reservations with that, especially from an interior aesthetic point of view. We'll see if anyone else has any comments. Please go ahead.
The other remaining windows, it looks like the head heights, and without having dimensions on the drawings, I don't know what the head heights are of those windows, but they look to all be remaining in their original position.
The front windows are.
And it's in line with the transom over the door. And so these side windows then would be the exception to the structure. They would be the only ones that have the lowered head height?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and they're not in line with front windows anyway.
They're not existing?
No.
In the existing condition, do you know what the difference is?
No, I don't.
No.
Not really.
Are they lower or higher?
I believe they're lower.
They're lower, yeah. The front windows, I think, have a transom type, multi-pane.
Right, I'm looking at the,
On this.
above the transom would be the top, would be the head height.
Right.
We're keeping the 3 front windows, redoing them all, using the original 3 front windows.
Is there any question that these windows are original size of the house, or any of them have been resized or added? Does the staff, or does the owner of the staff know that?
They appear to be consistent, to be original to the house in terms of their
These
openings.
particular windows are.
They are.
A number of them have been changed. It looks like the house has been remodeled maybe 3 times
Okay.
in the past. Front doors moved to the side. We're moving it back to the original place it was when it was built. So we're trying to take it back to original as much as possible and still make it, something aesthetically pleasing and marketable and updated as much as we can too.
And I may have read this at some point, but we have an awful lot of papers here. So remind me as to the condition of these windows.
Oh, they have to be replaced. They're not reusable at all.
Going over this house and looking at a window schedule and coming up with what they're asking now, the windows had been deemed to be in not a condition that can be repaired due to some of the damages inside for the termites, as well as some bracketing issues. So that issue is not the particular issue we're just dealing with.
But
Thank
for
you.
clarification, the frames are staying in place. They are intact.
Right, the frames
And so
themselves
we're
and the
talking the
signs.
sashes only to be
Okay.
It would be
placed.
Thank you.
placed.
Okay.
And it should be noted also that one of the, part of the request is a clad system, which is also one of the things that we're also dealing with in the sense that aluminum clad systems have not been approved. And so one of the issues that they would be dealing with is also the cladding of the window that has not been approved within the historic districts before.
Okay.
No, we're going all wood, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going all wood on those windows, Amelia. No, we were going all wood, back to wood on those original windows. That was our, now we have some clad ones, replacing some of the newer, yeah, in the back. Yeah, because they're virtually unusable. There may be some outside trim I might be able to reuse, but they're rotting up the sides. Even the sashes, are rotted out. The bottles falling off the sashes, the glass falling out. They're pretty bad. They really are.
Is the staff object to any change in the window size at all based on the guidelines?
That's correct.
Okay.
We've done a lot of work on this house. About 40% of it was completely damaged, and we put that back by termites or neglect or.
I walk by the house frequently, and you've done quite you've done quite a bit of work. Well, usually with two kids, but quite a bit of work. Mr. Magrish?
I was just wondering if, when you finish this current renovation, is that it for this particular project, or are you planning anything else? I mean, as far as the exterior of the structure?
It'll be totally renovated.
No, I understand. I mean, this house has been changed quite a bit since its original construction.
We're not planning on
And I didn't know if you had any plans to do any additional, quote, restoration or anything like that. Okay, thank you very much.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments about this case? Does anyone on the board have any additional comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion. I'm sorry, gentlemen, do you have any other comments?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion in reference to case 04150-323E at 323 Clay Avenue in the Aylesford Historic District to disapprove as recommended by the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Magrish. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? Gentlemen, I would like to thank you for coming down and talking with us and working so much with staff. It's obvious that you put a lot of thought and a lot of energy in this project, and you should be commended for that. Go ahead, Mr. Billings.
The guidelines are pretty specific about retaining historic door and window openings with respect to changes, and I remember when this came before us at our last meeting concerning the back changes. I think these are the projects that are going on in Lexington, which we need to continue to encourage, and especially with things that come before this board, to make sure that we adhere to the historic character and nature of properties, which is what we're charged with. I think this is a case where I think what you have done with the property is exactly what needs to be done, especially considering the space consideration on the second floor. Unfortunately, we're concerned with the exterior view of the historic nature of the property, and not as it may be affected by internal changes in the property. I know it may not be aesthetically pleasing or ideally pleasing from the inside, but it seems like it's not something that's. It's not a functionality issue about whether it will work or not work. It's more about whether it's pleasing or not. And I think that the staff's recommendation, in this case with the specific facts we have here, with the heights we've shown and the facts you have shown us, that they are correct with the application of the guidelines, specifically things like 2005 or 20-5, 21-2, 22-1, 22-2, and 22-3. But I don't want that to be a discouragement to anybody, because I think what y'all have done is what needs done, especially with respect to what we have approved for you all.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any other comment? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you again. Oh, Mike. In the Western Suburb Historic District, 704 West Short Street, the scope of work is to construct a trellis and pave a utility strip. Is the applicant present? Sir, if you would come forward and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Dominic Erdley, and my address is 704 West Short Street.
Sir, thank you very much. We have received your the additional information you submitted to staff and have reviewed it. And staff is recommending disapproval to pave the utility strip and approval to install the trellis, so long as the trellis does not attach to the historic structures. Are you in agreement with the staff's recommendations?
I don't think so.
Good evening. I'm Anthony Erdley, the applicant. On behalf of my son Dominic, who is the occupant at 704 West Short Street. No, we don't agree with either one of the staff recommendations. It is true that the majority of the north side of the 700 block of West Short Street has a utility strip that is grass. The place where the grass flourishes is where there are no trees. Where there are trees, combined with the fact that that is the side of the street on which the cars are parked, the grass has no chance. So the grass everywhere under the trees is ratty. We've made efforts since Dominic took the house in, I'm not quite sure when, about 1998, I think? 99. We've made efforts several times to get that grass to flourish, and it has not, very simply. This board will not recall, because I don't recognize that any of the members were, the current members were on it at the time when I made application for 468 West 2nd Street to do exactly the same thing. 468 West 2nd Street sits right on the sidewalk and casts a huge shadow across the little strip. And the board at the time when I applied, which was, I think was about the year 2000, agreed that we should pave it. I think there's a very similar condition. And there are, in fact, a number of places on the 700 block where there is brick paving between the sidewalk and the curb. I sent Martin some photographs earlier this afternoon, and I'm not sure, Martin, could you have?
Yes, sir. We do have those, and we'll when the staff gives their presentation, we'll make sure those get displayed as well.
Then on the matter of the beam across the four posts supporting the gateway, not touching the two historic structures on either side. I recognize when Martin made that recommendation that I hadn't shown clearly enough in the drawing that these posts are not to be driven into the ground and with compacted dense grade or anything of that kind. They're to sit on concrete pads with a pin. That will allow us to put those four posts in exact alignment and precise dimensional relationship one to another, so that the trellis, which the success of which depends upon a 2-inch gap, an inch and a half of material, a 2-inch gap, etc., so that all of that will work out exactly without any glitches. Now we could do it in the fence construction way and just drive the fence, the post into the ground, and we could be anywhere up to an inch out, even as a consequence of our best efforts. So the reason that I opted to go the other way was for purposes of accuracy in dimensions and alignment. Once you do that, there's no cantilever function left in the posts, so they depend entirely for their lateral support on the beam that I propose to attach to Dominic's house and to Nicky Drion's house, number 700. We've been in touch with Nicky Drion. He agrees in principle, and what more can I tell you? I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Well, sir, thank you very much. I think that perhaps for the benefit of the board and anyone in the audience who is either here this evening or watching from home, if you would entertain having the staff give the presentation on the case, and then we'll call you right back up with any comments. Thank you, sir.
This is property at 704 West Short. We see the driveway paved in brick. The steps are the ones that have been reworked, and the lattice work on these steps are
Here we go. Well, we're not doing this Saturday. There we go.
Do you think so? I don't think so. I was just trying to do the steps. Is there a front view? Okay. Well, what I was trying to show is the lattice work. That's good. This lattice work here is what was copied from the steps next door to the left, and that's also the lattice work that's proposed for the gateway. Now, if we could see the gateway, Randy. I guess we'd actually start on the side. The gateway would be right here at this location where the paved area of the parking for the vehicle ends and the sidewalk begins. And then this is the area of the utility strip that's proposed to be paved. Okay, next. This is the gateway. Originally, it was to be a pair of doors of unequal sizes, but in reworking it, the applicant, working with the contractor, figured it could just be a single open lattice gate to be like the rest of the gateway. And this is where the head section coming across, framing that, would be attached to the two houses. The applicant at this time is requesting that the board grant a COA to construct a trellis gateway between the front and side yard and pave the utility strip with brick. The proposed trestle gateway is to be located approximately 33 feet behind the rear edge of the public walk, have an overall height of 6'11" and length of some 13 feet, which is the distance between the main structure at 704 and 700 Short Street. The top rail of the gateway is to be attached to both structures. The gateway is to be supported on 4 wrapped 4-inch by 4-inch posts, which will contain the lattice panels and the hinged gate. The heavy squared apertured lattice panels for the gateway are to mirror the designs as seen as the front steps of 700 and 704. The entire trellis gateway is to be painted. The 2-foot wide by 26-foot long utility strip would be paved with brick that matched the driveway and would be dry laid to a compact density grade limestone base with joints brushed with sand. I should point out that I handed to you all just before the meeting the email that we have from the applicant with some drawings, and I guess I could show those drawings. The first one was not that well indicated as to where they are from, the two sheets. But that is to show that there is, and it's kind of hard to read, some brick in that one location. And then the second sheet in that has the top 3 indications are in the 700 block of West Short, and the bottom one is in the 600 block. And the location of this property is right at that point right there. We've listed the guidelines for your reference. The findings. Staff finds the installation of any style of fencing or boundary definers in excess of 6 feet in height to be incompatible with the residential character of the site in the historic district. However, because of the transparency of the proposed trellis gateway, staff finds that the additional height required for the top rail to run continually across the 4 supported posts an appropriate solution. The proposal to extend the top rail past the end post and attach same to the existing historic structures is found to be inappropriate. The existing paving pattern along West Short Street consists mostly of a grassy utility strip separating the road surface from the concrete sidewalk. Most of all the properties in the 600 and 700 block of West Short Street still have their utility strip in place. Some are planted with grass, others with ground cover. The proposed paving of the utility strip with brick pavers is not appropriate to the site or the western suburb historic district. The established Paving pattern for West Short Street includes the use of grassy utility strip. The paving of an existing utility strip is contrary to guidelines 14.2 and 14.3, which require the retention of the historic sidewalk, curb, and street patterns and paving materials. Since the green utility strips in this neighborhood are a characteristic part of the streetscape, it would become appropriate to retain the utility strips as a green space rather than lose it to a paved area. Recommendation: staff recommends disapproval of the request to pave the existing utility strip, and staff recommends approval of the request to install a trellis gateway with the following condition: the top rail of the gateway is to be terminated at the end post and not attached to the historic structures.
Thank you, Mr. Ginocchio.
You're welcome.
Sir, if you'd like to come back forward, we'll see if any members of the board have any comments or questions for you. We'll just open the floor up.
Actually, this question is for Mr. Ginocchio. Based upon the additional submissions today, does that change any of the staff's recommendations?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, please just jump in.
Mr. Erdely, I wanted to ask, have plantings that are known to thrive in shady locations been considered for the ground cover? You mentioned grass was failing in the shade. Have other plantings been considered for that strip?
Not for this location. I should mention that when we lived at 623 West Short Street, we had a similar condition of a problem of grass, even though that was on the north side and getting plenty of sun. And so we changed from grass to, I've forgotten the precise name, it's a low-growing fir, silvery kind of color. And to some extent it worked. The problem was that the moment the winter season came and the salt trucks went by, they destroyed it. And if you got a casual driver of the street cleaning truck, he took it away. So that was not very successful, and as a consequence of that experiment, we decided that the simplest thing to do to get a decent surface was brick.
Thank you.
I think that the entire project is a very elegant way that very elegant solution for the problems that you have here. You stated that you do have, or you're in discussion with the neighbor about the possible attachment of this member to their structure.
Yep.
If they should, for some reason, have a problem with that, could that that one end piece be set and the rest of it be just attached to the structure that you actually own?
As a matter of fact, you're right. One post could go into the ground, and if necessary, that post could be the post that goes into the ground. And then once that post is established, you could get the dimensional control from that to the others. So certainly one post could go into the ground if the owner objects. We've been in touch with him, sent him a copy of the drawing. He said that in principle he doesn't have any problem with it.
Oh, that's very good. As far as the brick paving goes, we live on South Mill Street. We have the exact same problem on a regular basis, mostly with the salt trucks during the winter months. It pretty much kills anything that is planted, so you're constantly replanting. Throughout the western suburb, there's such a variety of solutions for that strip between planting, brick, actual concrete paving in certain areas. I don't find that there's any problem with introducing brick that matches the driveway into that planting strip.
But let me just add, it's not really a consideration that you need to take seriously. But the fact is that that's the only piece of grass left that my son has to mow. And having to own a mower to do that little strip seems a little bit, well, not quite green anymore.
Very true. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I have to agree with Mr. Magrish. I think that the introduction of brick to that utility strip is not visually dominant or adversely affects either the site or the district. Evidence has been submitted documenting other utility strips in the district that have been paved with a hard surface. I think Mr. Magrish's suggestion that perhaps that one post be set is a good one. It might simplify things for everyone. If not, a condition to consider if the board is to go forward with allowing the top rail to be attached to the structures is to make sure that the anchors are put into the mortar and not into the brick, if that's possible.
Well, I actually do have one more question concerning the posts and being set into the ground. Are there any other conditions other than meeting the precision of the design of the gate and the trellis pattern that keep you from digging a post hole in the ground? There's no stone or paved surface that you'd be putting a hole through to make you're digging into earth?
We would have to temporarily remove a few bricks in the path and probably have to cut them around the posts once the posts were in place. But that is all.
There's no imagined jig or any way that you can think of to place these posts precisely enough to accommodate the design? Because I'm not sure that...
I did, in fact, talk to a landscape architect, very, very good guy, who has done a lot of work for me in a variety of conditions, and asked him if he could put those posts in with even a quarter inch of tolerance accuracy, and he said he didn't want to try. I know I'm asking for kind of joinery standards in what should be a garden fence.
Sure.
But I think the results would justify the effort.
One piece of information, too, and I don't know from the precise measurement, but the post that is closest to my house, my sewer main runs underneath there. So I think that might be a case of where, I mean, if they're saying that we have to sink posts, I don't know if we'd be able to sink that one.
There'd be a depth issue, at least at that one post. Speaking to the precision as a deterring factor, I've seen some pretty precise setting work. I don't know about the degree of accuracy within a quarter of an inch, but fairly accurate amount just through bracing structure while it's set in place. But thank you for answering those questions.
One other thought is that if we were obliged to put the posts into the ground, we'd also be obliged to change that gate from a single leaf to double.
To reduce the swing.
To reduce the moment of the swing, because it's a big gate.
Yes.
Which would be a shame, given that we're trying to achieve transparency through there. It would need more material for two frames of a door, two door frames rather than one. Thank you.
I do have a comment or two. The transparent design of this gate is lovely, and I think it would be a nice addition to the property. I am a bit conflicted, however, about the discussion between whether or not the attachment is structural or visual. It certainly has a visual component to it and adds elegance to the top treatment of this structure. I'm not necessarily buying either that it has to be done this way to be precise, although I respect your opinion greatly on that. I seem to be a bit more concerned with the proportion of that gate being 6'4" by 3'10", and you both seem like tall gentlemen. Are you going to fit under that gate, under the head of that gate?
I think we're both about 6'2", and if we try not to bounce as we go through it, we'll be all right.
Yes.
But
that's all.
I'm glad that you noticed that the extension of the beam beyond the post is both an aesthetic decision and a structural decision.
It's very obvious.
I was going to say that if you were to insist that we not attach to the neighbor's building, that you at least allow me to extend that little piece across to within a ½ inch of the wall. Thank you.
Mr. Billings?
Amelia or Mr. Ginocchio or Betty, can you all, I see that you all have recommended that it not be connected to attach to the historic structures on either side. What is the guidelines that you all rely upon? I didn't see that.
The intent in that is to protect the integrity of the historic structures and not to have elements screwed into the building that it's a sort of do no harm intent relative to protecting the historic fabric of the structures. And there are certainly bad ways to attach things and less bad ways to attach things. The chairman referenced, to be sure, it went to the mortar joints if indeed it was to be attached. But the best case scenario of do no harm to the historic fabric of both those structures would be to not attach to it at all and accomplish it as a freestanding element on the posts. And I think a considerable degree of accuracy could be accomplished in the post installation to make this possible. And I agree in a design sense that the member coming all the way in your perception to the eye of having it just about meet those walls is good. But I think you could accomplish it and still be freestanding and not have entered into the fabric of the historic structures.
Is the structure to the left of this property, is it brick or masonry?
Masonry.
Okay. With respect to the recommendation that the top rails to terminate the end posts versus continuing on but not being attached, do you have an objection to that as well from under the guidelines, or was that mainly based upon the idea that you didn't want to attach to the structure?
The latter, based on not attaching it to the structure.
So if it was continued out,
that it's fine.
but as long as it wasn't attached, you wouldn't have a problem with that?
To fill the void, so to speak,
Yeah.
to its nth degree is fine in a design sense and in accordance with the guidelines and the staff's opinion, but we were trying to protect the historic structures by not interrupting them with...
That's exactly what I was asking these questions in. Thank you.
Martin, is the section where the fence would attach into the structure that's frame, is that original to the structure or an early addition, or is that a later addition? Maybe, Mr. Early, you can answer that.
Is that about which structure?
If you look at it on plan,
704.
the building, there's the brick structure, which is obviously the original part, and then this back piece that has the 45-degree window and goes on back. Is that section right where that connection, is that an early addition, or was that something that was added later on?
It's difficult to know. What we do know about it is that originally it was a porch.
Right.
I think a screen porch. Maybe not even a screen porch, an open porch. But certainly to begin with, that 45-degree, the beginnings of that 45-degree and further back until it hits the kitchen was all open porch.
Okay. Thank you.
But that, I think, was a very long time ago.
Okay. So it's a now historic addition.
An addition of long-standing
The indications that we have is that the change from an open porch to an enclosed room must have been at least as early as the 1930s.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the board? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Gentlemen, before we ask for... go ahead.
I have another question. Have you all considered sort of a mixed utility strip of brick and some other type of ground cover? It seemed like some of the photographs you submitted to us had sort of blended both of those in successful appearances.
I don't think we'd object in principle to examining that. And certainly, if you'd like us to withdraw our request for the paving, we'd be happy to go away, think about it, see what else we can think about, and come back to you on that matter. There is not a rush to get either one of these jobs done.
Procedurally, I think that you could certainly withdraw it, and you wouldn't be limited by the 1 year to rehear a case. I also think that depending on how the motion is crafted, some latitude could be given into a condition about how any hardscape be implemented.
Let me just ask my son if that's what he wants to do. He's the owner, not me.
That versus having a movement that's tighter than a movement, whichever is better. I'm not sure which.
I must say I'm not enamored of the idea of trying to combine in that scale, right? I mean, if we were talking about the Piazza San Marco, I could say, oh yes, maybe we can do something.
No, I understand. That's what I'm trying to get my.
This is a little piece of ground about less than 2 feet wide, and so mixing things in that space doesn't strike me as being very fruitful.
I understand that, sir. Yeah.
To speak to that, also, I think, the photos we're seeing were taken now, at the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. And if we were to look at the same areas where paved areas and green are combined, we might see that the green, based on what you said about making it through the winter, might not look so good. I think Mr. Hurley's made it pretty clear that grass is going. It's not already.
I've seen it. I can confirm that.
Any more comments or questions?
In that case, let us leave the application as it stands. That is, with both the gate and the strip. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your additional information you submitted and speaking with us this evening. The chair would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Yep, please.
In reference to case number 171-70704-G at 704 West Short Street in the Western Suburb Historic District, I'd like to propose that we approve the application as presented without the staff disapprovals.
If I might interject, Mr. Magrish, I believe that you have to come up with some findings to justify going against the staff's recommendations.
Due to the fact that the design has very little intrusion upon the historic structures, it will, I don't feel that it will have an impact on either of the buildings. So in reference to the guidelines, I'm sorry, number in reference to the guideline that pertains to that, I think that's not an issue. The paving in reference to 15-2, I think that it is throughout the photographs shown by the applicant, it is indicated that various kinds of paving patterns are used types are used in the strips throughout the neighborhood, so that is also not an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Magrish. Is there a second to the motion?
Just to clarify.
One thing you might want to mention is 12.5, the guideline 12.5, site elements should not be visibly dominant, intrusive, or suggest a false sense of history.
Thank you.
You're
That was what I was looking for. Guideline 12.5.
Just for clarification, is your motion with respect to the top rail of the gateway terminating at the posts or not be attached to historic structures? I may have missed that. Is your motion to approve it as submitted? Okay.
As submitted.
Not hearing a second. I don't know exactly what the Roberts term is. Right before we get there, would you be willing to entertain an amendment to your motion that any anchors take place in the structure and the mortar joints rather than the brick?
That would be fine, pertaining to the brick structure.
Yeah,
and
pertaining to the brick structure.
The frame structure, that's somewhat irrelevant.
Absolutely. Amended motion, second to that? Okay, not hearing a second, the motion fails. The floor is back open for a new motion.
I will make that motion. Do I need to repeat the case number?
No.
No, we all know what we're talking about. Good. I would recommend a motion to accept the brick in the utility strip as submitted. The second part of the motion would be to construct this gateway fence not attached to either structure, knowing that, I'm sorry, that's commentary. That's the motion.
So you're accepting the staff's findings for the top rail of the gateway to terminate at the end post and not be attached to the historic structures?
That is correct. Thank you.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Any discussion of the motion?
So you want it to terminate at the end post instead of being able to be extended on?
Yes.
I understand the motion. Okay.
Yes. The structure would terminate prior to being attached to any of the adjacent houses. It would be a freestanding structure anchored to the ground only. That is my motion.
I just want to understand with respect to the top rail, though, would it be able to extend over the support post? Or
My
would
motion only states it will not attach. It can go within a hair of it, but it shall not attach, is my motion.
Ms. Summer?
Yes.
May I suggest adding guidelines 14.4 and 14.5 with regards to the paving of the strip?
Okay, just so everyone's clear, we're not actually accepting staff's condition that the gateway is to terminate at the end post. It's just to terminate prior to each structure.
It should not be attached to the adjacent two houses.
Is there a second?
Well, can I also maybe suggest an addition to this? Also that any redesign be submitted for staff approval. I know Mr. Erdley mentioned that if it were not attached to the structures, adjacent structures across the top, he would consider a different gate. So I would add, or would like to add, that top rail of the gateway be allowed to run past the end post but not be attached to the historic structures, and any redesign be submitted for staff approval.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion. Thank you. There was one nay.
No.
Yes. One no and everybody else is a yes, correct? Thank you.
And I'm confident that Mr. Erdley can skillfully design a new gateway that will meet the needs of the staff.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you, everyone, for a good discussion.
Let me thank you for the time and consideration you've given to this. I do, however, believe that a couple of tack cons into that old brick wall would have done no harm to anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I believe other business this evening, we have minutes from the 10 September 2008 hearing of the Board of Architecture Review. Anyone see anything out of the ordinary with those? If not, certainly entertain a motion to accept them.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to set forth a motion that we accept previous meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Maggart. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the
Could I make
motion?
one note? It's
Absolutely.
actually 2 meetings back. We're behind. So it's the September 10th meeting minutes. If you wouldn't mind, enumerate that in your motion. The previous meeting is the second meeting in September.
What I meant to say. Meeting minutes from 2 meetings ago, second meeting in September, be approved at this time.
Is the amendment acceptable to you, Mr. Maggart?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. If there's nothing else, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment. Adjourn. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much. And thank you again for coming. And oh yeah, no, it's